The crystal chandeliers of the Grand Meridian ballroom sparkled overhead as my father's 60th birthday celebration reached its peak. The who's who of Boston's elite mingled around elaborate ice sculptures and champagne fountains, all orchestrated by my sister Diana to showcase our family's wealth and influence. I stood in a corner, nursing a glass of champagne, watching Diana work the room in her $12,000 Oscar de la Renta gown. The perfect daughter, Harvard Business School graduate, CEO of her own tech startup, and mother of two picture-perfect children who attended the most prestigious private school in New England. Sarah, my mother's voice carried that familiar note of disappointment as she approached. Couldn't you have worn something more appropriate for the occasion? I glanced down at my simple black dress. It was actually a custom-made Chanel, but its understated elegance didn't match my family's preference for obvious displays of wealth. I thought this was fine, Mom. She sighed, the sound I'd heard throughout my childhood whenever I failed to meet her expectations. At least make an effort to mingle. The Worthingtons are here. Their son Bradley is single again. I'm not interested in Bradley Worthington, I replied, thinking of the merger documents sitting on my desk at Sterling Financial Group. Documents that would soon reveal exactly how single and bankrupt Bradley really was. Of course not, she muttered. Heaven forbid you show interest in anything that might advance your position in society. Before I could respond, my father's voice boomed through the microphone. Howard Matthews, real estate tycoon and pillar of Boston society, was ready to make his birthday speech. Friends, family, distinguished guests, he began, his voice carrying that practiced warmth he reserved for public occasions. Looking around this room, I'm reminded of how blessed I've been. My phone vibrated silently. A message from my real assistant, not the front I maintained at my modest consulting job. Final audit complete. All properties confirmed. Awaiting your signal. Diana moved to stand beside our father, her diamond jewelry catching the light. The perfect pair, father and daughter, business titans both. Or so everyone thought. And speaking of blessings, Dad continued, pulling Diana closer, I'm especially proud to announce that Matthews Enterprises will be expanding into the tech sector through a merger with Diana's company, Innovatech. At least one of my children has succeeded in carrying on the family legacy. The crowd chuckled appreciatively. All eyes turned to me. The apparent failure, the daughter who just ran a small consulting firm instead of chasing the spotlight like Diana. If they only knew that my small firm was a front for Sterling Financial Group, one of the largest private equity firms in the country. The same firm that had been systematically buying up the mortgages and loans on every property owned by Matthews Enterprises and its subsidiaries. To Diana, Dad raised his glass. The future of Matthews Enterprises. As the crowd echoed his toast, my phone rang. The caller ID showed, Operations Director. Right on schedule. Excuse me, I said quietly, stepping away from my mother's disapproving gaze. I need to take this. I moved to a quiet corner of the ballroom, aware that Diana was watching me with that smug smile she'd perfected years ago. Ma'am, my operations director's voice was crisp and professional. The audit is complete. We now control all outstanding loans and mortgages on Matthews Enterprises properties, including Mr. Matthews' personal holdings and Ms. Diana Matthews' tech company assets. I smiled, watching Diana bask in the attention of the crowd. And the terms. All loans are technically in default due to the cross-collateralization clauses. We can initiate foreclosure proceedings immediately on all properties. Shall I proceed? I took a moment to observe my family. Dad, still at the microphone, bragging about Diana's latest achievements. Mom, networking with the city's elite, probably trying to find me a suitable husband. Diana holding court among her admirers, none of whom knew her company was bleeding money and surviving on fraudulent investor reports. For years they dismissed me as the disappointment. The daughter who couldn't handle the big leagues. Who needed a simple job to keep her occupied. They never bothered to look deeper to see what I was building while they were too busy showing off their success to notice my quiet rise to power. Sarah, Diana called out, her voice dripping with false concern. Stop hiding in the corner with your little work calls. Daddy's about to announce the merger details. I turned back to my phone. Initiate the proceedings. All of them. Yes, ma'am. Should we begin with the main office building or the residential properties? Everything, I said quietly. It's time they learned what real success looks like. As I walked back to the party, Diana was at the microphone, detailing her plans for the company's future. Plans that would never materialize. And with this merger, she announced proudly, Matthews Enterprises will become the largest real estate and technology conglomerate in New England. My phone buzzed again. The foreclosure notices were being delivered electronically. In about 30 seconds, every device in the room belonging to a Matthews Enterprises executive would receive the notification. I counted down silently. 3, 1. The first gasp came from Dad's chief financial officer. Then Diana's phone chimed. Then Dad's. Within moments, the ballroom was filled with the sound of message alerts and the growing murmur of confusion. What is this? Diana's voice shook as she stared at her phone. This has to be a mistake. Dad's face had gone pale as he read the notice. His hands trembled as he lowered the microphone. I stepped forward, finally ready to show them exactly who the failure in the family really was. No mistake, Diana, I said, my voice carrying across the suddenly silent ballroom. Sterling Financial Group now holds all outstanding loans on Matthews Enterprises properties. And we're calling them due. Immediately. The Grand Meridian ballroom, moments ago filled with laughter and celebration, descended into chaos. Board members huddled in corners, frantically calling their lawyers. Diana's perfectly composed facade cracked as she repeatedly refreshed her phone screen, hoping the foreclosure notices would somehow disappear. This is impossible, Dad declared, but his voice lacked its usual authority. Sterling Financial? They're vultures. Corporate raiders. How did they get their hands on our loans? I smiled, thinking of the years spent carefully acquiring their debt through various subsidiaries. Actually, Dad, Sterling Financial is quite selective about its acquisitions. We only take over companies that have been, shall we say, mismanaged. Mom's wine glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor. Sarah, what are you saying? Before I could answer, Diana stormed over, her designer heels clicking against the floor like angry punctuation marks. What did you do? She hissed. Did you sell information about our company to Sterling? Is that what your little consulting firm has been doing? I laughed softly. Oh, Diana. My little consulting firm didn't need to sell information to Sterling Financial. It is Sterling Financial. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the orchestra stopped playing, the musicians sensing the drama unfolding before them. That's not possible, Dad whispered. Sterling Financial is worth billions. They control half the commercial real estate in 3 states. Their CEO is standing right in front of you, I finished for him. Though most people know me only as S.E. Matthews, CEO. I prefer to maintain a low profile, unlike some members of this family. Diana's face had gone from red to white. But your consulting firm. That tiny office. A front, I explained calmly. A way to observe companies we're interested in acquiring. It's amazing what people reveal when they think they're talking to a small-time consultant instead of a CEO. My phone buzzed again. More reports from my team. Diana's company's fraudulent financials had been forwarded to the SEC. The offshore accounts Dad used for tax evasion had been flagged for federal investigation. Every skeleton in the Matthews Enterprises closet was about to see daylight. The merger announcement, Diana suddenly remembered. All those reporters. We'll have quite a different story to write, I confirmed. Though I doubt Matthews Enterprises faces total asset foreclosure, was the headline you were hoping for. Dad finally found his voice. Why would you do this to your own family? Family. I raised an eyebrow. Like when you told the board not to consider my business proposal 5 years ago because I lacked the necessary ruthlessness. Or when Diana spread rumors about my mental health after I refused to invest in her first failed startup. Mom stepped forward, always ready to smooth over family conflicts. Darling, surely we can discuss this privately. This is your father's birthday party. Perfect timing, isn't it? I smiled. Remember last year's party, Mom? When you told the Whitneys I was still finding myself, while Diana was building an empire? I moved to the center of the room, addressing the stunned crowd of Boston's elite. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for interrupting the celebration. But since we're all here, I might as well announce that Sterling Financial Group has acquired controlling interest in Matthews Enterprises through debt consolidation. The murmurs grew louder. Phones appeared in hands throughout the room as Boston's wealthy and powerful realized they were witnessing the fall of one of their own. As of midnight tonight, I continued, all Matthews Enterprises properties will be under Sterling Financial Management. And yes, I turned to Diana, that includes Innovateca's offices and assets. You can't, she whispered. My company, my investors. Your investors might be interested in the real numbers, I replied. The ones you've been hiding while running a tech version of a Ponzi scheme. The SEC certainly finds them fascinating. Dad stepped forward, his face ashen. Sarah, please. Whatever you want, money, position, recognition, we can work something out. Work something out? I laughed. Dad, I'm worth more than our entire family combined. I own buildings you couldn't afford to rent. While you and Diana were showing off your success, I was quietly building an empire that makes Matthews Enterprises look like a corner store. The ballroom had grown oddly still, the audience captivated by the unfolding drama. Boston's elite loved nothing more than watching one of their own fall from grace. The properties, Mom said quietly, are homes. All mortgaged to shell companies I control, I confirmed. Including your precious summer house in the Hamptons and Diana's penthouse on Beacon Hill. Diana's composure finally shattered completely. But where will we live? What will people say? I smiled, thinking of all the times they'd mocked my modest apartment, never knowing I owned the entire building. That's the question, isn't it? What will people say when they learn that while you were playing business tycoon, your unsuccessful sister was becoming one of the most powerful CEOs in the country? The aftermath of my announcement rippled through Boston's high society like a tidal wave. The party guests quickly divided into two groups, those rushing to distance themselves from the Matthews family's downfall, and those desperately trying to forge connections with the newly revealed CEO of Sterling Financial. Ms. Matthews, Bradley Worthington appeared at my elbow, his practiced charm now directed at me instead of Diana. I had no idea. Perhaps we could discuss some business opportunities over dinner? Interesting, I replied coolly. An hour ago, you were telling my mother I wasn't ambitious enough for someone of your stature. He paled and retreated, probably remembering that Sterling Financial had recently acquired his family's failing shipping company. Diana sat slumped at a table, her perfect posture finally broken, staring at her phone as message after message arrived from panicked investors. Dad had loosened his bow tie, looking every bit his 60 years as he read through the foreclosure documents. Mom was still trying to salvage the situation, whispering frantically to her society friends, no doubt spinning some story about this all being a misunderstanding. My actual assistant, Margaret, appeared silently at my side. Not the meek persona I maintained at my consulting firm, but the sharp, Harvard-educated executive who helped me run my empire. The press is waiting outside, she informed me. Would you like to make a statement about the acquisition? Not tonight, I replied, watching my family's world crumble. Let them stew in their own headlines for a while. Dad finally approached, his shoulders sagged in defeat. The properties, all of them? Even the family home. Especially the family home, I confirmed. The one you remortgaged to fund Diana's tech ventures. Did you really think no one would notice the fraudulent valuations? I was protecting the family legacy, he protested weakly. No, you were protecting your image. The great Howard Matthews couldn't admit his golden child's company was failing, so you mortgaged everything to keep up appearances. Diana joined us, her mascara slightly smeared. My company isn't failing. We're just in a growth phase. Your company, I interrupted, hasn't turned a profit in 3 years. You've been using new investor money to pay old investors while pocketing millions in consulting fees. That's not a growth phase, Diana. That's fraud. Mom made one last attempt at damage control. Surely, darling, as family we can work something out. Perhaps a private arrangement. Like the private arrangement you made with the country club board to block my membership application? I smiled. Don't worry, Mom. I bought the club last year. Membership isn't an issue anymore. My phone buzzed with another update. Diana's board had called an emergency meeting. Dad's partners were demanding his immediate resignation. The carefully constructed facade of Matthew's family success was shattering in real time. What happens now? Dad asked quietly. Now. I pulled out a stack of documents from my clutch. Amazing how a small bag could hold so much devastation. Now you all learn what real business looks like. Diana, you'll be stepping down as CEO of Innovatech. The SEC will want to discuss your creative accounting practices. She started to protest, but I continued. Dad, Matthew's enterprises will be absorbed into Sterling Financial's real estate division. You can keep an office but no authority. Consider it a chance to watch how a properly managed company operates. And our homes. Mom whispered. You have until the end of the month to vacate the main residence. I've arranged for a 3-bedroom apartment in Brookline. Something more aligned with your new circumstances. Brookline? Mom looked horrified. But what about our standing in society? I laughed. The same society that's already edging away from you? Look around, Mom. Your friends are already calling their brokers trying to get meetings with me. And it was true. The ballroom had transformed into a networking event, with Boston's elite practically tripping over themselves to catch my eye. The same people who'd dismissed me as the unsuccessful Matthew's daughter were now desperate for my attention. Why? Diana finally asked. Why go to all this trouble? Why not just tell us who you really were? Would you have believed me? I countered. Or would you have tried to use me like you've used everyone else? No, I needed you to see the truth about yourselves first. I gathered my things, ready to leave the party that had turned into a wake for the Matthews family legacy. One last thing, I added. The family dinner next Sunday? Cancelled. Permanently. As I walked toward the exit, the crowd parted like the Red Sea. Margaret fell into step beside me, tablet ready.